I told you to sit down! You are jeopardizing this flight! Get back to your seat now!
Sir, I am an authorized passenger and I will not be threatened.
A first-class seat is more than comfort, it's a statement. For Damian Hayes, seat today on Airline's Flight 117 from New York to London marked the quiet end of a billion-dollar deal. But when a flight attendant saw a black man in a tailored suit, her disbelief sparked a condescending question and a humiliating public scene. Despite following every rule, Damian was escorted off the plane. They thought they were removing a problem. They didn't realize they had unleashed one. The incident became the spark that would consume their corporate empire. The first-class cabin, a haven of leather and quiet luxury, was filled with the global elite, silver-haired titan reading the Financial Times, a fashion model scrolling through her phone, a young tech heir sipping champagne. And in seat 2A, Damian Hayes, calm, composed, and unshakable, had just become their worst nightmare. A young tech heir sipped his first glass of champagne, and then there was Damian Hayes in 2A, clad in a bespoke charcoal suit and polished Oxfords, exuding quiet power. At 42, his stillness hinted at aloofness, but it was the calm of a man who had built Obsidian Capital, partners from a second-hand desk into a multi-billion-dollar private equity firm. This flight was a brief moment of respite before London. Damian had just tucked his leather briefcase under the seat when Karen, a senior flight attendant, approached. Her practiced smile didn't reach her eyes, which scanned him critically, lingering on his suit and watch as if searching for a flaw. "Sir," Karen said, a little too loudly, "can I help you with something?" Damian lowered his phone. "I'm fine, thank you," he replied. She gestured vaguely. "This is first class. Economy is further down the jet bridge." Damian felt the familiar tightening in his chest. He'd faced this 100 times. The skeptical doorman, the waiter favoring white guests. Calmly, he said, "I'm aware. My seat is 2A. Her practiced smile faltered. "May I see your boarding pass?" He handed it over. She turned it over slowly, scrutinizing it like a legal document, the silence stretching unbearably. "Everything in order," Damian said softly, though steel edged his tone. She handed back his pass. "We just have to be careful. Passengers sometimes get confused," she said, leaving the insinuation hanging like cheap perfume. Damian put on his noise-canceling headphones, trying to push it aside, but a tap on his shoulder brought Karen back. "Sir, your briefcase must go in the overhead bin during taxi and takeoff." He looked down. His slim leather bag was perfectly stowed under the seat, not in the aisle. Calmly, he replied, "It's under the seat, exactly where it belongs. It's a safety hazard, sir. All large bags must go overhead." His slim briefcase clearly wasn't large. Yet the man next to him had a bulky backpack in the same spot. No comment from Karen. "My bag is stowed correctly per FAA and your guidelines," Damian said, gesturing to the other passenger. Karen glanced, her flush rising. "I'm the senior flight attendant. This isn't a debate. Move the bag, or I'll get the captain." The threat was absurd. This wasn't about the briefcase, it was about authority, about her discomfort with him being there. Passengers watched, awkward and annoyed, as Damian calculated the optics resisting would only label him the angry black man. He quietly moved his briefcase to the overhead bin, sat back, and met Karen's gaze. "Thank you for your cooperation," she said stiffly before moving on. Damian tried to reclaim his peace, but it was short-lived. Just before pushback, Karen stopped at his row again while he finished a call. "Sir, all devices need airplane mode." Damian calmly held up his phone, showing it was switched off. "Sir, that's a direct instruction." Damian held up his phone, airplane mode on. "I've complied. I do not appreciate your tone, and I will not be harassed. Your issue isn't with my bag or phone, it's with me." Karen snapped, "I'm getting the captain." Minutes later, she returned with Captain Robert Sterling, his stern eyes betraying none of the chaos about to unfold. "My flight attendant says you've been disruptive and refusing instructions." Captain Sterling said, "That's false." Damian replied steadily, "She has harassed me since boarding. I've followed every legitimate request." Sterling's eyes were practical. Not listening, he needed a quick solution. "Ms. Miller felt you were aggressive. We can't risk friction on a 7-hour flight." You'll need to deplane. Excuse me, Damien asked, incredulous. For being on the phone for 10 seconds? For putting my bag where everyone else does, the captain said, his face a granite mask. My crew feels unsafe, zero tolerance. A passenger filmed the scene. Damien's fury rising, but controlled. He stood, suit flawless, staring at the captain, Karen, and the other passengers. Silence was his answer. As security approached. Damien paused, calm and precise. He said, "You are making a grave mistake." Not a threat, just a promise of reckoning they couldn't yet grasp. As he walked down the jet bridge, Karen's words echoed in his mind. It's always people like him. Damien Hayes returned to JFK not as a victim, but as a predator with a new target. The robotics deal was old news today. He had an airline in his sights. He didn't shout or demand apologies. His anger was molten beneath a surface of ice, a fire to be forged into a weapon. His first call wasn't to a lawyer, it was to his second-in-command, Jessica Chen. Change of plans. He said, "I'm not coming to London tonight. Book me a suite at the Carlisle and get David Miller on the phone. I want him here in an hour." Damien's voice left no room for questions. Jessica's sharp concern cut through. "Is everything all right? I'll brief you both when you arrive. Let's just say I've found an unexpected investment opportunity. An hour later, in a suite overlooking Central Park, Damien recounted the entire flight from Karen's first condescending remark to Captain Sterling's dismissive judgment. He ended with her whispered phrase, "It's always people like him." Silence filled the room. David Miller, Obsidian's chief counsel, finally spoke. "This is open and shut, Damien. Textbook discrimination. We'll sue them into the ground. Depose the crew, every passenger. Subpoena HR records, no exceptions. Aura Airlines will be writing you a check with so many zeros it'll look like binary," David said. Damien turned, eyes dark. "A check? Do you think this is about money?" "Punitive damages," David corrected. "It's about making them pay." Damien's voice dropped low. Intense. "They'll issue a boilerplate apology. Maybe fire the flight attendant. Roll out meaningless sensitivity training. Stock dips a week, then rebounds. The captain keeps his job. CEO keeps his bonus. The system stays intact. I'm not interested in damages. I'm interested in damage." Jessica leaned forward, understanding instantly. Damien didn't play the game. He changed the rules. What are you thinking? A lawsuit? Justice? Damien shook his head. "I'm in a position to dispense it." Jessica's fingers flew over her laptop. Aura Airlines, publicly traded, ticker AI, market cap $4.2 billion, decent balance sheet. But razor-thin margins fuel, labor disputes, the usual airline woes. CEO Richard Ellington, a 30-year industry lifer. "Who's the biggest shareholder?" Damien asked. Jessica paused. "About 55% owned by Global Horizons Group, a British conglomerate." Damien repeated the name, savoring it. Jessica pulled up charts. Ticker GHG on the London Stock Exchange, owning Aura, luxury hotels, shipping, and more. Market cap north of $25 billion, run by Lord Alistair Finch, old money aristocrat. Inheriting bloated, over-leveraged assets. Damien's slow, predatory smile spread. Perfect. This wasn't just a mid-tier airline. This was old world power, the kind that let a Karen Miller feel untouchable. Lord Alistair Finch, Damien mused. "I'm sure he's never been told his bag is a safety hazard." David looked between Damien and Jessica. "You can't just buy a $25 billion company because of a flight incident." "Of course not," Damien said calmly. "That would be emotional. I am strategic." He turned to Jessica. "I want a full workup on Global Horizons' every asset, liability, debt, shareholder, even Finch's routines and board politics. Aura is just a symptom. Global Horizons is the disease, and will be the cure." Jessica blinked. "A hostile takeover? No," Damien corrected. "A frontal assault is loud, messy. We'll be ghosts." He began pacing, the plan forming. In his mind, a masterpiece of shadowed corporate warfare. Phase 1, silent accumulation. We'll use shell corporations across the Caymans, Liechtenstein, Panama quiet entities buying tiny blocks of GHG stock, Damien said. Always under the 5% disclosure threshold. No big buyer. Just market noise. Phase 2, destabilization. They're bloated, overleveraged, and one bad headline from panic. Maybe their shipping arm is exposed to new regulations. Maybe their hotel chain is fragile in a downturn. We'll find the soft spot. Then we feed anonymous tips to the Wall Street Journal. Financial Times let doubt do the work. Phase 3, the alliance. Damien's voice sharpened. Every board has factions. Finch inherited his power. Someone resents that. We find the rivals, the pension funds unhappy with returns, the quiet dissidents. We show them our blueprint for unlocking value. They'll be on our side before anyone knows there's a war. David swallowed. And Phase 4, Damien stopped. Eyes blazing. The day we cross the disclosure threshold, Damien said. We file our 1-3D with the SEC and the UK regulators. That's the morning Lord Alistair Finch will open the financial news and learn that an unfamiliar entity controlled by a man he's never met now holds a controlling stake in his family's empire. And that man, Damien added, voice dropping to a lethal calm, is the same problematic passenger his airline threw off a flight. He let the words settle like a final verdict. They wanted to put me in my place, he said. They're about to learn my place is in the chairman's seat. The meeting in the Carl suite broke near dawn. David began constructing the maze of shell companies. Jessica dove into GHG's financials, rallying her analysts for the biggest project of their careers. Damien finally lay down, but not to sleep. He was already planning the next move. He lay awake, replaying the flight not with anger, but with sharp clarity. Every condescending word from Karen, every dismissive gesture from the captain, was data fuel for the engine he was building. Obsidian capital, black, sharp, born. Under pressure, reflecting truth. Damien Hayes had been forged by heat. Now he would show Global Horizons its own reflection. For 6 months, the financial world remained oblivious. Damien moved like a ghost. Obsidian's public deals tech in Germany. A biotech IPO continued as cover. Behind the scenes in the Foundry project, Sunset signaled the old guard's decline. That stock accumulation was flawless. David Miller's legal team spun over 20 shell companies. Atlantic Holdings, Eurivest Partners, ceased limited, each buying small, irregular blocks of GHG stock, invisible and undetectable. Trades went through brokers in London, Frankfurt, and Zurich. To analysts, it looked like minor institutional activity. By quarter's end, Obsidian silently held 4.9% of Global Horizons, just below disclosure. A loaded gun with the safety on. Meanwhile, Jessica's team dug into GHG like corporate archaeologists. The weakness wasn't the hotels or shipping, it was the pension fund. Lord Finch had underfunded it for years, using outdated actuarial tables to inflate quarterly results. The fund was heavily tied to GHG stock, a house of cards ready to fall. He's been robbing employees' retirements to boost EPS, Jessica said, pointing to a complex flowchart in the Foundry. Damien's eyes narrowed. The timer had been found. It's legal, but reckless, Jessica said. If GHG's stock dropped, the pension fund could collapse. British regulators would have a field day. Damien's voice was grim. That's our lever. Time to push. He called Michael Davies, a veteran Financial Times journalist with a nose for corporate wrongdoing. A crumb, nothing more. Check the actuarial assumptions in Global Horizons pension fund. It's still stuck in 1999. 2 weeks later, the FT ran a front-page expose. Global Horizons pension gamble risks retirees' future. Markets reacted immediately. GHG stock fell 5%, then 8%. Investors panicked. In Mayfair, Lord Finch was apoplectic. Lord Finch, spoiled by generations of wealth, saw the FT article as a personal attack. Who did this? He demanded at an emergency board meeting. His directors offered platitudes, but doubt had been sown. Damien's timing was perfect. With GHG stock depressed, Obsidian's shell companies quietly bought more shares, raising their stake from 4.9% to over 15%, making them the largest shareholder. Next, an inside ally. Jessica identified Eleanor Vance, a sharp, pragmatic American board member frustrated with Finch's resistance to change a rare outsider. In the Old Boys Club, Damien took a direct approach, flying to Geneva to meet Eleanor Vance at a women's leadership conference. After her speech, he introduced himself. "I'm Damien Hayes, founder of Obsidian Capital Partners," he said. Her eyes widened. "I didn't know you were interested in boardroom gender parity. I'm interested in good governance and competent leadership," he replied. Something sorely lacking at Global Horizons. Finch is a relic, running a 21st century company like a 19th century estate. The pension scandal is just the tip. My firm holds 15% of GHG, and we're preparing a proxy fight to install leadership that will modernize the company and protect its stakeholders. I believe you're part of that future. Finch is not, Damien said. Eleanor froze, stunned by his audacity. A secret 15% stake, a masterful move. "Why tell me this?" she asked. "Because you see what I see," Damien replied. "A mismanaged company ready for a surgical turnaround. With your support, we can act swiftly, not painfully." He handed her a black business card. "Think about it. We disclose in 4 weeks. Be on the right side of history." Meanwhile, back in the U.S., Aura Airlines CEO Richard Ellington handled the incident with corporate indifference. Damien's lawyer sent a detailed complaint. The PR department offered a $500 voucher and a written apology Ellington signed. It seeing the matter as trivial, Captain Sterling filed his report. Karen Miller felt vindicated, and Aura Airlines carried on, unaware that her small act of prejudice had sparked a financial avalanche threatening Lord Finch and his empire. 4 weeks later, Eleanor Vance sided with Damien, seeing the revitalized future he offered. The stage was set. On a Tuesday at 8:30 a.m. London time, David Miller filed the Schedule 1-3D. Press releases hit global outlets. Obsidian Capital, led by U.S. billionaire Damien Hayes, reveals 28% stake in Global Horizons Group, launches proxy. Battle to oust Chairman Lord Finch. The financial world exploded. GHG stock surged as news of a potential takeover broke. In Mayfair, Lord Finch stared at the headline, pale and uncomprehending. Obsidian Capital. Damien Hayes. American new money he'd never tracked. At Aura Airlines, CEO Richard Ellington felt cold dread. The man his airline had kicked off a flight 6 months ago was now waging war. $500 voucher and apology letter powerless against this. The news shattered Finch's carefully curated world. GHG became the arena for a brutal proxy fight. Finch and his loyalists scrambled, hiring top lawyers and PR consultants to brand Hayes as a ruthless American corporate raider. GHG played the nationalist card, warning that a cherished British company was under attack. Finch, defying his advisors, gave a BBC interview, seated in a gilded armchair. He dismissed Damien Hayes as a short-term, brutish outsider, defending heritage over numbers. When pressed on 7 stagnant years of GHG stock, Finch stammered, citing proper ways and legacy. The interview backfired spectacularly. Damien stayed silent, sending only a precise, dispassionate letter to all shareholders titled A Pathway to Renewed Value, exposing years of underperformance and making the case for change. Damien's letter exposed the pension scandal, bloated management, and underperforming assets, then outlined his plan: streamline operations, sell non-core holdings, reinvest in profitable businesses, and install a new, competent board led by Eleanor Vance. Investors responded to competence over Finch's appeals to heritage. The final showdown was set, a special shareholder meeting at London's Savoy Hotel. The ballroom brimmed with shareholders, lawyers, and journalists. Finch and his board faced Damien, Jessica, and David, who radiated calm and control. Finch spoke first. Finch delivered an emotional plea about legacy and history. Then Damien Hayes took the podium, commanding silence. Lord Finch speaks of history. I speak of the future, he began, his voice steady. He called out GHG's failures, undervalued assets, ignored liabilities, and the pension fund scandal a moral and fiduciary breach. Then he outlined his vision, a leaner, agile, accountable GHG focused on innovation, growth, and real stewardship. Damien wasn't the villain Finch claimed. He was disciplined, brilliant, and successful. He concluded, "This isn't about destroying a legacy. It's about building one of excellence, integrity, and value where everyone is treated with dignity and respect. The choice is simple. Remain in the museum or step into the future." Silence fell, then applause. The vote was a landslide. The outcome already decided. Damien Hayes' slate won 82% of the vote. Lord Finch was removed as chairman. Calmly, Damien approached him. "A piece of advice: be gracious to those below you. You never know who you'll meet on your way down." Finch, stunned, whispered, "Who are you?" Damien smiled coldly. "Just a passenger, someone your airline thought was problematic." Damien then went with Jessica and David to the temporary office. The new board convened, unanimously electing him chairman of Global Horizons Group. His first act as chairman was a phone call. Damien Hayes called Richard Ellington, CEO of Aura Airlines. "This is Damien Hayes, your new boss," he said coldly. After reviewing Aura's performance, Damien accepted Ellington's immediate resignation. "The time for talking was 6 months ago, when you dismissed a discrimination complaint with a $500 voucher," he told him before hanging up. Turning to Jessica, Damien said, "Get me the flight manifests for Aura 117 from JFK to LHR for the past year. I want Captain Robert Sterling and Karen Miller." The aftermath of the takeover was swift and ruthless. Damien Hayes' corporate restructuring was also a precise act of karma. He didn't make a show of vengeance. His retribution was quiet, systemic, and devastating. Lord Alistair Finch lost more than his job. He lost his identity and social standing. Audits uncovered years of lavish personal spending, and Finch was forced to repay millions or face public exposure. He sold his estates, became a recluse, and his name turned into a cautionary tale. Finch had mocked Damien's loud money and was crushed by quiet disgrace. Richard Ellington, ousted by Damien, became a pariah in aviation, reduced to consulting for a failing Midwest cargo airline. Captain Robert Sterling's fall was subtler but severe. At the new Aura Airlines HQ, he was shown data revealing a pattern of poor judgment in backing his crew, along with the incriminating video. The message was clear. It wasn't a single mistake, it was a fundamental flaw in his judgment. "You chose the easy path, not justice," Maria Jones told Captain Sterling, who opted for early retirement over a demotion, his career grounded by a single bad judgment. Damien turned to Karen Miller. Firing her was simple, but incomplete. Under the new management, she faced a formal review, shown the video, Damien's complaint, and a file of past incidents. Her defenses stress, a sick mother, just enforcing rules, crumbled. "You weren't enforcing rules," Maria said. "You were enforcing your own biases." Karen Miller was fired for her fundamental character flaw, ending a 20-year career. A former co-worker leaked the story. It went viral, and she was doxxed and harassed. No airline would hire her. She ended up a cashier, broken and publicly shamed. Damien felt a hollow ache. He wanted justice, not spectacle. He focused on the future, pouring millions into Aura Airlines, modernizing it, implementing top-tier diversity training, and establishing scholarships. Eleanor Vance became CEO of GHG. Respected across Europe, Obsidian Capital transformed Global Horizons into a model of 21st century governance. A year later, Damien flew on the revamped Aura A350, greeted by professional, respectful staff. He hadn't just bought an airline, he'd created a system ensuring fairness. The story showed two kinds of power: fleeting authority versus strategic, structural power. Damien didn't seek revenge, he ensured an apology was unnecessary. Karma, it turns out, always gets paid in full.